I'm Graham Beadle from Allspark Hypnotherapy and also Sparkfinder, a game of monsters and mental health. And today you join me for the first episode of Striking Sparks, where I'll be joined each week by various role players of differing experience levels, where we'll talk about what they get from a game of role playing. Now, today I'm joined by Matt Burden, who I first got to meet, 7 or 8 years ago now, I would think, possibly more, where we had a shared love of both comics and wrestling. Matt was at the time running a small independent federation in the UK called FPW, which went on to be the little federation that could, putting on some absolute dream matches a long time before certain individuals were having big matches in Japan and in WWE. So Matt, thank you for joining me today. Really good to see you, just to catch up. So I'm going to enjoy this regardless. Even if no one else watches it, it's going to be nice just to have a chat and catch up with an old friend. So,
absolutely.
First up, tell me about your introduction to role playing. You're quite a new into the hobby, so how did this all start?
I think I'm going to be 45 next month, and as a kid, if you think I was born in 1978, so kind of coming up through the 80s, through D&D specifically being just part of the zeitgeist, part of the lexicon, I was drawn to the imagery, the painted covers, all of that stuff. However, I was brought up in a strong Baptist household. So Mary Whitehouse, Satanic Panic, all of that stuff, which was just part of my parents' church meetings and lots of media scaremongering, meant that you might as well be playing with an Ouija board. It was just not.
I've got to be honest, I had very much the same. I had Methodist parents, so very
there
much thing. But thankfully, I had a teacher at school who we just played at school.
So it was just not part of my childhood. It was just sort of automatically not part of my childhood. And no, nothing against mum and dad. That was what they felt was the right thing for me, and that was the way that I guess they were about quite a few things, which has created an obsessive personality in me now, which I kind of thank them for, because now it's not enough to know, to have seen a movie. I need to know every line in the movie and all of that kind of stuff. And I think growing up in that era, under those circumstances, have created quite a few obsessive personalities, and mine among them. So I'd always wanted to get into Dungeons and Dragons, and you had tastes of it. So the animated series, if I caught bits and pieces of it.
We're not going to mention the movies. We're just going to skip straight past those.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. We're not going to pass through. Yeah, Jeremy Irons was in Die Hard with a Vengeance. That's where it stops. That's where it stops, Graham. Yeah. But then I think sort of me growing up, having kids, becoming an adult and having kids, and then enjoying board games with my kids. It was kind of, I always knew there was a board game version, and then there was kind of a pen and paper version. And so I picked up the Ravenloft adventure board game system, and of course the appeal there is that you can play it solo if you want to. There are mechanics there where the game DMs itself, and so that was me dipping my toe in. And then in 2019, a really good friend of mine, Jason Obi, going through a split. Him and the missus had parted ways, and I called him to just say, how are you? Maybe we should do something together. And I said, I've been wanting to learn how to play D&D. Do you fancy just doing this with me? And Jay used to play, so he's 50, and he had an older brother. He used to play with his older brother in his youth, but hadn't played for decades. So we went along to our local board game cafe, the Ludicrous in Croydon. All we had was a player's handbook, and we thought, we're going to turn up on a Tuesday with a player's handbook, sit down, with some character sheets without any background and know what we're doing. Suffice to say, we were playing Ticket to Ride within about an hour. We just couldn't we couldn't get our heads around it. And then fast forward to, of course, last week of March 2020, lockdown hits, and I think it probably took about 2 to 3 weeks. Another possible mutual friend of ours, Phil Harker, who used to do a wrestling podcast, a Facebook friend who I don't think I'd ever met in person. It was just, I know of this guy, just put a post up to say, had a bunch of fun running a new starter game on Roll20 today, got a lot out of it. And I thought, hang on a minute, messaged him and just said, look, if you're doing one of those again, would you mind if we kind of hijacked it? No problem. Called Jay. We both jumped in with a group of people that we'd never actually met before.
And Phil, it's equivalent of a wanted poster in a pub, isn't it? In a tavern, basically.
It is, yeah. It's how Iron Maiden were formed. It's just and it became, I think it was bi-weekly to start with, I'm pretty sure. And then again, another mutual friend of ours, Elliot Giles, messaged me and said, I've noticed you did this the other night. I've always wanted to do that. Do you mind if Phil, would you mind if Elliot jumped in? And suddenly we had this mini campaign going, and it became what we did every Tuesday night. It actually started on a Thursday night because I remember I felt terrible. I was playing D&D and we missed the first ever clap for the nurses on a Thursday night. I was sat there, I know, my wife's like running through the house with saucepans, and I'm sat in my front room, and I could hear this applause outside, and I was thinking, what's going on? And but it became what we did every other Tuesday, and then it very, very rapidly became every Tuesday. And then as maybe people dropped out, basically the rest of my kind of island of misfit toys friends from different walks of my life just all came together, and now we've got 6 to 7 people that we have played pretty much every week, bar some holidays, for 3+ years. We've gone away together, we've rented an Airbnb and just done a weekend of beer, pizza and running games, and it got us through lockdown, I guess. So it was kind of a crowbar, but it kind of felt like I'd been drip fed D&D from a very young age. I guess Magic the Gathering was probably the closest I got to anything like that. I guess late sort of early 2000s, I guess, for me.
Right.
But there you go. I would say in a nutshell, but as always with me,
it's 6.5 minutes, Matt. So that's fine. That's absolutely cool. We've got half an hour to put it together, so
absolutely
we've got 22 minutes left.
Tight 20.
So your group, you say you've got 6-7 players. So you've got. I mean, is that everyone coming together each week, or is that just a case of you interchange, mix and match, or is it how are you running that with that many people? Because I've always found large groups are quite hard to manage to get everyone involved.
Yeah, me, Elliot, Christian, Jay, Phil, Richard sometimes, Dan. So we're looking 6 permanently, I would say, every Tuesday. And then we spoke before, if someone can't make that week, or if 2 people can't make that week, and we feel that we need them to know what's going to happen, next one of us will just run a one shot that week.
So keeping the story progression tight, that everyone's involved and no one's dropped out, and you've got something. So are you guys just D&D players?
Yes.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I have to say, and I'm probably going to upset some of the Pathfinder fans, that I'm actually a big fan of 5e, but not to play, which may sound odd. Having played role-playing games since 1978, I jumped in with D&D and played through D&D, but also played a whole host of other games. And what I found with 5e was the fact that it was a little bit, and I'm going to offend again the D&D people now as well, it's a little bit simpler than some other games. But from the point of view of getting people into role-playing, that's
the appeal.
Amazing. So I get really annoyed when people go, oh man, it's too basic. It's like, it's too basic, but you know what? If some people come along and find a game and it's like just number crunching and it's going to drive them away. Whereas D&D, with all the podcasts that have started and the live role plays with things like Critical Role and Glass Cannon with Pathfinder, it's been such, and obviously Stranger Things, there's been such a explosion that having 5e out there, and it's got the name recognition obviously, and with the film out now even more so.
Yeah.
It's just drawing people to the hobby, like yourself, taking the opportunity. So what I do for a living now is I play role-playing games and help people find the chemicals they need in their brain, which may sound a bit peculiar, but as we play games, we experience various things which triggers a release of chemicals in our brain. Now, the big one for me for role-playing is oxytocin, which is often described as the cuddle drug. I don't like that description, being autistic. That makes me go a little bit like that. But it's something we get when we have a really positive social interaction. So playing a game with a group of people each week in, week out. What is it that you get most from when you're playing with it? Obviously, you said that it's mutual friends or people that you kind of knew from various different, interests or through the wrestling or whatever it might be. What are you getting? What do you find that makes the session work for you, that makes you feel good and want to go back each week?
I think, and again, so to touch on your other point, where there's certain people that find it too simple or like the number crunching aspect of it. I'm well aware that the way we play isn't going to be for everyone. And it's been a real proving ground of finding that balance where everyone not gets their time to shine, because that insinuates that what you're trying to get out of it is the spotlight, and that isn't the point. But we absolutely, to use a wrestling term, pop ourselves every week. It's the laughter that has come out of these interactions, where a circumstance will come up and somebody just says that line at that particular point that would never come out of any kind of, I don't want to say normal interaction, but in day-to-day interaction, it just so happens that we're in a tavern and one of the party has decided to go on a date with the bar wench, and another one of our party can't understand why he can't tag along and bring his giant trout he's just caught and slap it on the table to ruin the evening. It's just, it's magic in a, it's gold. And
you sure you're not playing Paranoia rather than D&D? Because it's like
wouldn't know. But yeah, I think making each other laugh for sure is absolutely, that's where that chemical is going to come from. But I think real peril and overcoming real peril for sure, even though we know it's a fictional circumstance, but you're just, hang on a sec, this just got real. How do we overcome this? But working together to overcome something. But I think there's a misconception about what real D&D is. I don't think there is any such thing. But the second any one of us get close to what we feel, there's a great quote where someone says, everyone gets into D&D thinking it's going to be like Lord of the Rings, but it ends up like Holy Grail. It ends up like Monty Python. And that's, I come out, with tears down my face and a big grin on my face. So it's just wonderful. It's the best improv with friends you can ever find.
That's the best way of describing it. The fact it is just improv fun, and I think that the system has to take a secondary place because it is more about. But you mentioned the that sense of peril and that achievement and overcoming things. So again, that's another of these chemicals that we're looking for when playing. This is a dopamine hit every time we succeed. Now, any role-playing game has got a wonderful reward system built in. We get XP, we get level, we get treasure, so all those things feel fantastic because we're attached to that character and we like to see them progress. But when we overcome, a particular challenge, if we've got through the mobs and we've come across the boss and we've got past that, it's always that collective sigh of relief that we've got through and there's nobody died, or even if there has been somebody died, that becomes part of the story and they're kind of into the annals of history. So I don't know how it is, if you've got something you can share with us that's maybe one of those moments when the group were like up against it, looked like they weren't going to succeed, and then managed somehow by the skin of their teeth, whether it be via ridiculous behaviour or something heroic, managed to succeed?
I think I mean, we've been kind of up against it a number of times with kind of big beasties, but I think it's the moments where people truly use their own personality and then their characters' traits so purely that no one else would have thought of it, but they kind of get it. There was I think one that we played Horde of the Dragon Queen as our first ever campaign, and Jason ran that. Bless him, he, never DM'd before, and then jumped into Roll20 with all the maps and bells and whistles and ran it. One of our players, Richard
If I had a
Henshaw.
hat, I'd be taking it off to him right now, having recently had to learn VTTs when I've always done it face to face. So absolutely, hat off to the guy.
One of our players is Richard Henshaw, who's a guitarist for the prog band Haken, and we've all been to see him a bunch of times, and he's a great, very down to earth chap. But ironically, in the first campaign, he played a bard. And if anyone who's played Horde of the Dragon Queen, it's to do with the occult. Lots of cultists running around and allegiances to various beasties. And we were infiltrating a camp, a cultist camp. And a number of us had been captured and tied to posts, and we were being interrogated. And it was quite clear that there was a lot of cultists in this encampment, and a distraction had to be had. And Richard decided he was the only one that took the right decision to actually take a disguise and dress up as one of the cultists. And he decided to go up on a hillock as a cultist, whip out his guitar, get a hat out and put it on the floor and say, "Guys, are you ready to rock?" And he rolled performance 10 times in a row, spot on, in order to distract these cultists. By the end of it, he was taking requests, and he was whipping, like, passing the hat round in order to make money out of it, on top of distracting everyone enough for us to get out of our bonds to disappear. I think he did Everlong at one point. It was just this moment where we went, you really can do anything with this game, but if you make it relevant to you and your character as well, it's even better. But yeah, we were all just it would never have occurred to us. That wasn't in the book. He just did it, and the DM was smart enough to go with it and roll with the punches and understand that this could be a truly magical moment. And it was like a defining moment for our group, because it was, this is how we play from now on. This is what we're going to do. But yeah, he held an impromptu concert in the middle of an encampment of cultists, and ended up making quite a bit of money out of it, and we all escaped.
So within your group, have you had to experience the horrors of character death yourself as of yet?
We have, yeah. So we're playing Icewind Dale, so the Frost Maiden campaign at the moment, which is lots of kind of Arctic tundras and trekking across ice and whatnot, and we haven't had a total party kill, but let's see, I'm going to say 60% of our 60-70% of our party are now on their second characters, as a result of us completely underestimating a Duergar dwarf fortress in a mountain. I managed to jump out of the way of some kind of explosion and roll down a hill with like 1 health point. And yeah, I'm kind of I think I'm one of 2 of the original characters that started that campaign. But yeah, it's the jaw. You see it on Zoom. Everyone's jaw just, did that just happen? I just spent a year with that person.
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, we had, so I recently, I'll say recently, it's nearly 2 years now, introduced my newly married wife, because I got married a month and a half ago, to Pathfinder. So we got a couple of her friends from the sort of steampunk cosplay scene and invited them round. And once a month on a Sunday, we get together. I cook, and they come around and play, and we play on the kitchen table, like I said, and it's then obviously they're kind of like into their characters, and every time they're, because they're new to the game, they're panicking every time the hit points are low, or they're into dying, which is a thing in Pathfinder where you make sort of as soon as you go to 0 hit points, you start making rolls each turn that you progressively get closer to dying.
Right.
And they've experienced that and had the panic, but they had their first party death the other day, and they were mortified. I mean, it was an NPC. It wasn't even one of the party. But but he was the bard of the party, who had been singing their praises in the taverns and accompanying them throughout their adventures. And to the point where, surprises me, my wife giving her speech at the wedding had made a toast to him because of the fact they were that to the people that were there. And it was like, there made that much of an impact. But we have stories to tell, and I remember characters that I played when I was 12, 13. I can tell you about them. I can't tell you about anything else that happened from back then, but I can tell you about what my characters did in various games over the years. So yeah, we do have this attachment to it, and as we see them grow, again, it's a personal development thing. Not only do they develop, we develop with them. We develop traits, and we work out behavioral styles. So it is that constant learning that we and using the neuroscience behind it, we're forming neural pathways the whole time. We're getting used to, how can I best use this? How can I do this? What will this person do in this situation, even if it's not the right thing? He says, holding his head. Where am I going with this person, with this character? What is your, just out of interest, what character are you playing at the moment? Tell us about your character.
So I'm playing a Tabaxi rogue.
You have to explain to me what a tabaxi is.
So it's an anthropomorphic cat person.
Okay.
Rogue, who's also got some wizard traits now. So I multi-classed it as we went up. So yeah, level 7 rogue, but level 1 wizard. So level 8 character.
Okay.
Which super sarcastic, shocker. Elliot once described it as just playing with hairy Deadpool. So so he's one of 2 brothers who were brought up in a thieves guild, and my brother Decker, who got himself into a little bit of bother and got himself into some debt. Unfortunately, it resulted in the people he owed money to burning down the guild, and we were banished from the guild, and I've lost my brother somewhere along the way. So our DM is Christian, is incredible at kind of chucking in a little appearance of my brother Decker from time to time, or a clue or something scratched somewhere that he'll intertwine our backstories with the ongoing proper campaign. But yeah, he's sarky for sure.
So how much of you as an MC is in your character?
A lot, yeah. It's the old, it's the old Spinal Tap up to 11, isn't it? Similar to wrestling, I guess. But he's also very honourable, and he can see a needy cause when he knows a needy cause when he sees one, and won't put up with injustice, I guess. But always there to just remind people of who they are.
And within the party, is there a particular person you bounce off? We're talking about again that the social whether as a player or as a character. Is there somebody that your character is like either at loggerheads with, or they work as in tandem?
It's always Elliot. It's always going to be Elliot. It doesn't matter what character he plays, and we talk, especially during lockdown. We would talk 2-3 times a week, just with what's going on in our lives. And so he used to wrestle for us when we ran Future Pro Wrestling. So I only got to see him maybe 5-6 times a year, but through this, we've now got a friendship where, like I said, especially during lockdown, we were on the phone 2-3 times a week. What's happening with this? How's your family? What's going on? So, we formed that friendship through Dungeons and Dragons that we never would have through wrestling, for sure. And so I think he as a person has traits that are counter. We're very yin and yang, so we're very similar in certain ways, but super opposite in other ways. Like he loves weightlifting and super looking after himself and bodybuilding. I like sports I can experience from a sofa. We're opposites in that way, and so I infuriate him with my pursuit of the funny when he's looking for he wants the Dark Knight trilogy, and I want Batman Forever. Right. That's he wants the "where is she?" and I just want to be Jim Carrey,
which is fine. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I have to say, it feels weird hearing you describe him like that, because I obviously only know him from in ring, and I've spent my whole time booing him every encounter I've had with him, because he seems the opposite from that. Everything, his whole persona when he was wrestling was very much larger than life and vile and not particularly serious. So yeah, that's I can't actually imagine that side, because he did such a good job at being a heel that it's quite hard for me to get my head around that concept.
Yeah. So yeah, he played a vampire in the first part of the Icewind Dale, almost a reluctant vampire that had made a deal with the devil to kind of in pursuit of trying to avenge his wife. It was kind of a Spawn come Blade hybrid, so super serious all the time. And of course, I can't do that. I can't. So we'll walk into a tavern, and the running joke from Alan Partridge, which I've just imported over, is whenever we go into a tavern, I'll order
the ladyboy.
Spot on. Exactly. It doesn't matter what tavern we're in. It doesn't matter what materials are around. I'll always order 3 ales and a ladyboy for the vampire, and it infuriates him.
So as soon as you said Alan Partridge in a tavern, I know what's coming now.
Absolutely, it's a chaser. Yeah.
Nice. So what have you? So if you had to say something you'd like to that you haven't done with role playing yet, something that if you had to set yourself a goal or something you'd like to achieve, what would that be?
I think for me I love playing, but I have really found that I really enjoy DMing as well. So the one shots that I've run are usually like the old Stephen King adage, it takes 2 good ideas before I can have one really good idea. So he'll have one really good idea and he'll wait for another one to come along and then stick them together, and then that becomes kind of the magic kind of spark. And speaking of which, like I run my little world that I've created for when I do one shots is called Fort Cliff, which is just basically Castle Rock. So I'll be able to pull things in. I did a Needful Things meets a Twilight Zone episode meets something else. I even had Ridley Scott's Alien make an appearance at one point. There were eggs in a barn and they were attracting the villagers, so my thing will always be I want either somebody to think to know what's coming and be super excited to get there, or be so shocked. So it's the old Hitchcock
or
thing.
Think they know and then find it's a complete curveball.
The twist. It's the Hitchcock thing, isn't it? Do I show the audience that the bomb's under the table to build suspense, or do I hide the fact there's a bomb and have it go off and then for them to be shocked? So I think my thing is I love running adventures that really jaw drops people, and when I look at the reactions, it isn't self-congratulatory. I'm just super happy that I've created that evening for that person, and they've had they've had such a positive time that it's like perfect. It doesn't matter who died or who won or who didn't win. It's just that we really enjoyed sharing the same space together. And if you're the architect of that, I mean, Jay for a year did that, and we've shared all of these experiences on his time. And same with Christian running Icewind Dale. He's created all those memories. So I think to be better at DMing, maybe getting better at pace, that kind of thing.
And I think the hardest thing with DMing as well, because obviously you're trying to make the story work for people. It's, you have an idea, you have a story, but at the same time, you don't feel like you want to railroad people. And it's really, it is a cooperative storytelling process. And I found for years, I was like, I had to be honest, I was like, I want this story, I had it in my head what I wanted for me. And it was only really after I had therapy that suddenly I went, actually, do you know what would be more fun is everybody getting the same out of this or getting what they need from this. And you said it is kind of finding that, what was, the sort of three-ring circus kind of thing. This person needs this person needs that, and we need a little bit of lightheartedness to break it up, but it can't be all lighthearted because that's got, whereas I was very much, I want to tell this story, and it took me a long time as a GM to get my head around, hey, let's find out what everyone else needs from this. So maybe 25 years before I started doing that. So
I think probably because when I'm doing them, it tends to be one shots, and one shots pace is so important for one shot. So if you've only got 4 hours and you want to tell a complete story, or I mean, let's face it, all one shots are truly two-parters. They end up becoming two-parters, don't they?
Yeah.
So you do have to lead the story a bit. So I will do almost like cinematic cutscenes where I'll have them interacting, and then not that they don't have a choice to be somewhere else, but I'll have something happen that transports them somewhere to move the story along. I think I could probably get better at that for sure, and at least allowing those characters to at least feel like they've got some decision-making abilities. But I think the surprise aspect of a lot of the way, especially one-shots run, the feedback's been positive. I'd like to become better at that for sure, I would say.
Amazing. On a positive note of looking forward how we can get better, we're at 32 minutes, so as expected, we've overrun. We can both talk for England, but I actually managed to let you go today and just let you rattle away, which feels like that was an achievement from my point of view. So thank you so much for sharing with me your experiences with D&D. And I'm looking forward to talking, because the plan is to talk to some of the other guys in your play group.
Yeah, so absolutely.
We'll get a different opinion of what they think of you as a player.
It won't be different. Okay. They'll say, yeah, he's sarcastic. He hogs the limelight, and it's all about popping the boys. Oh, wait.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Matt. And hopefully it won't be too long before we speak again.
Definitely.
Cheers,
pleasure.
Matt. Thank you very much.